Hello and welcome. My name is Timothy Reeder-Wright. This is Gnostic Tarot Cards historical presentation of Judgment. It's not like Judgment Day of the Terminator or anything. It's just we're going to look at the Judgment card when we go to Gnostic Tarot Cards. You can go to comparative versions and see some of the other versions of the tarot that we have. But this is just going to do a kind of scholastic presentation of a historical line and maybe similarities that are within the tarot, and particularly the Judgment card and its symbolism. So this work is helped and kind of prompted by Christine Payne Towler, Tarot University and Arc Letters. You can always go here and check her out. Also, she's at tarotuniversity.com, so that'll be definitely helpful as well. Let's move along. So in the first picture here, we have the Cary Yale Visconti, a Judgment photo. And as you can see, we have a couple of cherubs right here. They actually called this card the Angel. The cherubs are in the sky blowing trumpets. One of them is, and then another is actually holding a kind of banner here, which is a way that it's kind of presenting itself. And this is one of the only ones that we have where we're seeing the banner in this really dark color, and there's two of them. So the other thing I wanted to show you though is that the souls below are seeking resurrection, but they're also, the character on the lower left has hands in Osiris risen mudra. The right hand is over the left hand, and as they are over the heart. So it's almost like Osiris, or the kind of actualized initiate, is ready for judgment, but it's evoking its kind of godhood first, because this is a very, very ancient hand position that is called the Osiris risen mudra. Next we have the Charles VI Judgment card. I don't know where the card is. Maybe I put it wrong here. Okay, yeah, here we go. The Charles VI Judgment card. And then we have the two cherubs with their horns. I don't know if that's some discoloration from the actual card itself, or if it's meant to be like that. Kind of interesting. We have the Osiris mudra here. The arms are in these areas, and then this one's actually telling this one, you know, what's up with you? What's your problem? And these others are kind of accepting the judgment or whatever. So it's showing a lot of the ideas that are kind of over the topic of judgment. But we also have a character in different gestures with one of the right hand over the heart and left over genitals right here. So that's kind of a weird thing that we're seeing right there for the first time. It's almost saying, like, do you know what happens here? And you see it's covering up the androgyny of the character. It could be a woman, or it could be a man with long hair. We're not really sure because it's not very much like showing. But a lot of these are men, except for a couple of women. We're not really able to see though for a fact. So I'm thinking that it's talking about sex itself, because it's bringing attention not only to the organ, but it's also showing that, you know, kind of a guessing game for which one. And this was on the mind of a lot of people back in those times. The sex was a very taboo thing. We didn't have the sexual revolution like we do in our time. They were very under wraps about it. So moving right along, we have the Visconti Sforza Judgment card. The timings are off a little bit here. But you'll see that we have the two angels with the trumpets again, kind of forming a cross in a way, like an X here, which is another Osiris kind of cross-like representation. Then we have like a Yahweh kind of hierarch above with the sword. So it could represent definitely the papal keys. If you look at the keys of the papal seal, they show these two keys intercrossed. And we definitely have a very important authoritative figure here. But the coffin shows more of a sensuality than just, souls that are raising. It shows two women, very similar to the Lover's card. And then it shows a man here that's in between them. Now, I don't know if that's a male face cut off, a head cut off, but we can only see a head. So it's definitely bringing representation to sexuality again, because we have very sensual women here. Then we have the head, which is kind of talking about heads and temptation, no pun intended, and judgment surrounding that. So we have a lot more sexual symbolism that is in play as well. Next we have the Vievelle Taro, the Judgment card. It's like in a Marseille style, but we have a very big curab up here. This one's obviously kind of male. And we have behind here like a dark kind of, I don't know if this is an afro. I don't think it is. I think it's kind of like a dark place that this angel comes from. So we then have a longer trumpet that's going down. As you can see, this is one of our first representations of straight down the spine, with the cross and flag there, like we saw in the Cary Yale. But this one's almost like an intrepidation. Their intrepidation, it's almost like they have something that they're freaking out about. And then you have, more of this. But mainly I wanted to bring your attention to the red and white drops. This is one of the first time we see these drops coming out, which could represent the semen and the menstruation blood drops. So it's very interesting to see that we have kind of this red symbolism underneath the base of the trumpet, because that could correspond as you go down to the base chakra, or red. So it's very interesting to look at this. Also, it's coming out of a cloud. We're going to see more and more of this develop through the times. There we go, the slide's right there. This is the Parisian Tarot, the anonymous Parisian Tarot. The angel is blowing a trumpet again. The sepulchre with the souls rising. You have right here the souls are rising. Next, we have the Baloney Terracino. Now, you'll notice the large trumpet. So we're definitely bringing a kind of representation to how long and large and very lengthwise portion of this card itself, and potentially representing the spine again. But also look, the trumpet is very long and phallic like, but there's also red dots all over the place. And these aren't cylinders of baloney. They're actual, like, they could be damaged, but I'm thinking it's more like menstruation dots. So we could be getting back to the sexual symbolism of the judgment again. Next, we have the Mincate Fiorentine Judgment card. If you look here, kind of have a happy Italian looking lady. You have the bun up in the air, and over the city of water population. So this is definitely like an Italy or Venice kind of place. Then we have some kind of a seal. It looks like there's a crown right here. And then the wings above look like hands are on them. If you look right here, it looks like there's hands sort of on the wings. So I don't know if they're making a reference to the Italian kind of practices of the Fretters Lucas and the wings as being hands or what here. But we're also seeing there's two trumpets. So this two trumpet out of one angel will start to show more and more as we look at the trumps. Next we have the Metelli Tarot, the Judgment card. And as you can see, this is a very free judgment card. They're not really standing there over souls. It's not very judgmental judgment. It's more generic than the eschatological souls. It's kind of saying like this is gonna happen. You see the white and the dark wings here, so it's important to look at some of these differences when we're looking at the cards themselves, because it's showing us something. Each one of these pictures is a representation of something the artist was trying to get to our attention. So this is definitely the wings of the dark and light. You can even see that they are they're patterned differently. So that's a definite thing that they were trying to bring to our attention. So next we have the Tarocco Siciliano in 1750s. Sorry about the slide presentation. These are actually supposed to show first, but you see we have a Zeus-like figure with lightning bolts. They have the red cape over. Very important, because in the Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about the red cloak being kind of that of desire. So this could be the Zeus-like desire. We show underneath the water or the purple mountains, maybe Olympus kind of thing, but also the green eagle or winged bird with the golden head and the green body. That is definitely alchemical. Whenever an animal or a totem is green, it represents an alchemical process. That is just a kind of standard throughout all alchemical treatises, that whenever you see a being that has green in them, it represents the green processes of whatever animal. So this is a lot like the changes in nature that we see in about the same time alchemical treatises. Next, there's the slideshow working properly again. We have the Marseille Tarot of Judgment. Now this is very interesting, because you see this is one of the first times we see a red Templar cross in the middle of a white flag. So this is definitely showing some of the evidence that we have in the Marseille and its possible Templar connections. Next, we'll see a very 3-in-1 mother symbolism. Obvious, this is kind of a mom-like figure or daughter. This is not showing, so we're thinking it could be kind of a youth-like, since both of them are looking toward this one. There might be some androgyny here too, so it's not sure whether this is the half of Persephone that's revealed and the half of Persephone that's concealed, but it's definitely a woman figure because we have the head with the kind of bun there, so it's showing some youth. But it could be showing Persephone and Hecate and Demeter. This is definitely a Lucinian, and this would be in line with some of the mystery school teachings that come from Templaric areas. Also, you'll see the angel is emerging from a cloud. There's definite emphasis upon the cloud. It's big rays, so it's like a triumphant again going along the spine. Very triumphant, kind of cloudy thing, which could represent the wheels representations of chariot mysticism in the Merkaba system, and that would definitely be something that the Templars were interested as well, because we also show out here, we show like golden fields, which are very important because in the Eleusinian mysteries, they were very focused upon death and resurrection. So you see that it has a very Eleusinian kind of vibe to it. So moving along, we have a little bit more modern, the Tarot with the Master. Now this is just a really pretty picture, but I wanted to bring your attention that it's the same angel with the trumpet. This time, you see up here, we have the soul symbol, S-O-L, for the sun. So it's not certain whether or not the sphere is an emphasis of celestial heavens, which show the stars around it, or if it's just the sun that's within it. I'm thinking it's the sun within, and then we have the celestial heavens around, the stars, so to speak, in their arrangement, and the sound of the stars. But right here, we don't have much of a yearningness. We just kind of have a blinding judgment that comes at once, and like a trumpet, and we're kind of freaking out a little bit because we don't know what it is. This is potentially a light-based representation of judgment. Next thing I wanted to show was Gran, Taro, Esoterico. The judgment card there that we have the slide messing up again. But we have the sun and moon. Now this is the first time we get this kind of representation. Obviously they're showing the sun in a larger aspect than the moon. So this is not going back pre-heliocentric astrology. Though we know that this is astrological because of all the representations in it. But it has a gateway like Parthenon or portal with the pillars, and you see the Ankh there, so it definitely is representing a kind of Egyptian reference. We have the moon, same kind of pillars are in the moon card, but we're showing the steps, so it says definitely kind of like a steps to the gateway of knowledge or something of that nature. And we have the lines that are kind of showing the degrees or some kind of spherical representation here. Next, we have Attella, or Aliette. The judgment card from Attella shows something very different. It shows the angel again with the trumpets, but you see here there's 2 trumpets in this hand and 1 in this hand. That's kind of an interesting divergence that we haven't seen before. The angel is disinterested in the crowd. It's almost like a non-direct judgment as opposed to our directly, going to the people before. Now we just kind of have a non-direct judgment, but it still has the magnificence of the solar, of the power coming from the sun. The souls are seeking salvation, but their angel is kind of just doing what it's supposed to do. So in a lot of ways, Attella was saying that this is opinion or arbitration. Depending on which way it goes, it could just be an opinion that judgment's going to happen, or it can actually be the arbiter of our conduct. So next we have the Fratres Lucas, or Brotherhood of Light. Now there's a potential deification process known as apotheosis, where the human becomes godlike. You can see through the mummification process, you have somewhat of an ascension. So we're showing the 3 levels of the bodies that are coming through in the Brotherhood of Light. Also, we see the trumpet again with some kind of divine being. The wings can definitely represent one of the kind of Egyptian god forms. But the apotheosis is about ascending to your godhood. This could be like in Horus, Isis, and Osiris, definitely as well. So it could mean that Horus, Isis, and Osiris are stages within the resurrection or apotheosis process. The heavenly being with the trumpet, like I said before. And then next we have, I wanted to bring to your attention the Corpus Hermeticum, Hermetism, not Hermeticism, but Hermetism. Tractate 18 mentions trumpeters and possible representations of musical attunement. So we see that the Hermetic kind of Osirian, Egyptian, and trumpet tradition really falls through into the same kind of categories. Which is important because the Corpus Hermeticum was around the 1st to 4th century. So if we're looking at trumpets and ideas of resurrected bodies out of a sarcophagi, we're kind of seeing that the solar mysticism was not just a Christian thing. I mean, even though this is a modern representation, the Brotherhood of Light off of the Fratres Lucas documents, what they say was a lot like some of the initial things that were initiates were taught in the Egyptian mysteries. So it says, remember, child of earth. This is definitely coming from a hierarchical point of view, that fortune is fickle. Even when it appears at its most stable, the soul's ascent is the fruit of its successive trials, hope in times of suffering, but be wary in times of prosperity. Do not be lulled into laziness or forgetfulness. At some point, unknown to you, the wheel of fortune will turn, and you will be elevated or cast down by the Sphinx. Now, this is very important to see because the Sphinx was a kind of a representation of the Egyptian riddles of life and death. So we see that their cultural times were kind of brought into everything. Now, that's a document by Paul Christian, so we don't know about its authenticity, but we definitely know it was kind of like the Brotherhood of Light representation. Next, we have the Nap Hall Judgment card. I like the Nap Hall because good old Manly Hall had given us kind of a representation of what he liked in the tarot. So we have the angel blowing the trumpet again from the fiery sun, kind of going down, but this time we have droplets coming from the sun. We have the symbol of the soul on the forehead, SOL, and then the skull of the skull, the seal of the skull and rose, life from death. So we definitely have another family kind of representation of mother, father, child, or scion, but we don't really know. The difference here is that the cross is different. There's a white cross on a red background, and that could, you know, represent one of the Templaric kind of Rosicrucian developments that we show here. The rose and skull is definitely something that's representing life and death, but the rose was very Rosicrucian-like. So Hall perhaps wanted this to be part of the representation. So next, we have one of my favorite decks. And this is the Tarot of the Stars from Tavaligone. This is the Judgment card. It has strong zodiacal references. If you look around, mostly all the cards have a zodiacal reference. And the beings are being raised, they're feminine. If you look, mostly every single one of these beings is feminine as a psychic or soul component. So it has very Gnostic interpretations here. You see some are kind of in a trance. Others are just being raised up with their hands up in the air. Others are ecstatic, and they're in ecstatic kind of erotic mysticism. So we could see maybe that this represented a lot, especially with the gold. A lot of the gold was a feeling of union, and maybe Tavaligone was talking about a lot of this through the sexual symbolism that he put on this card. To bring it out, this is more erotic, so it's more out of the death and judgment, although we do have some rigor mortis here. The death and judgment, and more into the unification with the higher solar being. But then again, we have the white cross on the red background. Very different than the Templar cross. That actually represents something entirely different. Now these were brought by Rosamira Tarot's Picasso site. Very, very good site for everything Tarot if you want to do a comparison. Okay, well that's GnosticTarotCards.com presentation, semi-historically, of the Judgment card. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gnostic Tarot Cards, and visit us on Facebook, Twitter, network blogs, and it's not really Blogger, it's our new WordPress software. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Once again, my name is Timothy Reeder-Wright. I was happy to present this information on the Judgment cards throughout 14th century or so. Thanks for stopping by, and hope it was informative.